I'm Brandon Eastman with BeBetterIndustries.com, and if you're new to this YouTube channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. That way you see all new videos every single Monday, and hit the like button. That way this video gets shown to more people who want to perform at their peak and amplify their success. We have a very special individual with us today, and his name is Mr. Paul Rankin from the Suffer Well podcast. Paul? Pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Great to see you, Brandon. Great to see you. Great to see you, Internet land.
Paul's overcome a lot of challenges. He has a very different perspective on the world, on people, on personal development as we know it. And he's got a lot of insights that can really make a difference for you as well. I mentioned his podcast, the Suffer Well podcast. And Paul, tell me a little bit about your podcast. I know you talk a lot about self-growth. You talk a lot about overcoming adversity. How would you describe it, and who are you looking to reach with your podcast?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking, Brandon. You know, I've been through a tremendous amount of suffering in my life, violence, had concussions from growing up, just a lot of abuse, and spent the last decade really working on myself and trying to master my past so that my past did not become my present and then therefore my future. And through that process, I've sat down with mentored hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and been mentored by hundreds of people. And I came to the conclusion that there's a lot of people out there that have suffered like I have, that simply don't know that there's another way to live their life.
Yeah.
And I made a decision a long time ago that if there's anything I can do to serve mankind or serve other people, I'm going to do it. Because I see that as the people that served me, that took my phone call at 3:37 in the morning when I was going through what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I just know that life is all about what you give to the world. That's where I feel the most alive, is when I'm in the situation where the guy's about to get divorced and he's calling me at 2 in the morning asking me for advice. And the world's hardest problems to solve, marital problems, addiction problems, that's where I thrive. That's where I really like to be.
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel like I can make the most impact in people's lives. That's where I find people grow the most.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah.
And that's what the Suffer Well podcast is all about, is like seeing things from this perspective that all of life is suffering, and it's an opportunity to allow suffering to destroy you or to enhance you.
Totally.
Because ultimately, like, there's always somebody getting sick, somebody having a problem, there's a fight going on, there's always stuff happening, but it's about what do I decide that means to me.
Yeah.
So that I can determine where I'm going with that. It's like, it's a lot like, people's emotions. You get to decide, am I actually going to be controlled by them, or am I going to bring my emotions under control?
Yeah.
Very similar concept.
Paul, you have a very unique way of explaining concepts. And you have a very unique way of taking what has happened for you in your life and framing it in a way that actually serves you, which allows you to serve other people.
Yep. Thank you.
And I feel that insight, that perspective, I feel that's not something that, I might be wrong, but I feel like it's not something that just comes to you. I feel like that's something that you've intentionally worked on and honed. And something that I really love doing, and it's part of what I do with this channel with my audience, is to help them uncover what it is that's special about them, help them uncover what their unique ability is. And just from watching you from the outside in, I feel like one of your unique abilities is taking really complex ideas and communicating them in a very simple way that can really help people to make a difference in their life. Where do you think that power comes from for you?
Well, I think that, for me, growing up, I had to solve very difficult problems as a child. I was jumping in front of a fire poker that's moving down at a 37-degree angle at 3 miles an hour onto my sister, and I'm blocking that. Obviously, it's going to be a pretty candid podcast, because I think that if we don't talk about the hardest and most challenging things in society, people don't get set free from it.
Yeah.
And because of shame and guilt and everything like that, people think, oh, my story, it's just too much, no one will accept me, what will people think of me?
Yeah.
And I'm at the stage in my life now where I've realized that all of those thoughts simply kept me from my best self.
Yeah.
Simply kept me from becoming what I was meant to be, because I allowed myself to be stuck in my old mindsets of where I came from instead of new mindsets. And so I think that it came from having to solve complex problems, like having to know exactly how to be in the moment, and create enough conflict that I was the one that was getting the majority of the wrath versus my brothers and sisters. Because for me, it was always about protecting them. How do I protect them from this? Even when I was very young, and obviously, as I'm talking about this stuff and abuse and whatnot, like, I'm not trying to put my parents on blast. I've made peace with them. That's not what this is about. That which we don't talk about in society, that destroys society. Yeah. And so for me, I always want to be pushing that envelope towards like people feeling safe enough to share their truth.
Yeah. Totally. And I talk about purpose a lot, and I've got several different videos. I'll link one up here or here, whatever side of the screen it ends up going to. But I believe that we always talk about how do you live your purpose. We talk about, what are you meant to do here on this earth? Like, why are you here in this short time that we really are here? Like, you never know what day might be your last.
You're right.
And I believe that by practicing your purpose, by practicing what you're here to do, it allows you to have fulfillment in your life. Yep. And I think that everyone has a unique purpose. And I'll explain why. I believe that purpose is what you're naturally good at. You add that to what you've learned to be good at. You take your passion, what you're passionate about, the change that you want to see in the world, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. The fourth element is, what is your origin story? And this is what I found to be one of the most painful pieces for a lot of people. Absolutely. Is the origin story. Because the origin story is the one thing that differentiates you from other people. Yep. And the reality is, our origin story is generally a very painful thing. It comes from abuse, like what we talked about. It comes from pain that you've experienced in your childhood, throughout your teenage years, throughout growing up. Maybe you were bullied, maybe you were picked on. God forbid, maybe you didn't have parents, maybe you grew up on your own, you had to learn how to survive at a very young age. And I feel that a lot of people, it's hard for them to really look at what that origin story is and take from it what is valuable from it. Take from it those experiences so that they can move on and really make a difference for others. It sounds like you've really come to peace with your origin story, and you're taking it now and using it to help others. And my question for you is, how and at what point were you able to take that pain and really look at it and observe it and pick out the pieces that have allowed you to say, okay, I'm ready to share this story, I'm ready to help people with my message?
I think it comes down to community. I think most people, when you grow up in a dysfunctional system, whether it be a family or maybe you got a rude coach or teacher, or somebody that says they don't believe in you, like, we experience things as familiar family, right? We experiencing things as part of a group. Yeah. And when you don't feel like you're part of the group and you feel like you're not accepted, right? That then causes you to isolate. And in dysfunctional families, it's the exact same thing. And so for me, what I had to do was I had to find a community of people. I had to find a community of people that had my best interest at heart. It's these three indicators are a safe place. Because most people that have been through what I've been through will have people, oh, it's not that bad, why are you complaining? Like, people try to minimize and marginalize people's stories. And what I found is, if you have a place where no one's ever going to give you any advice, tell you what to do, or give you any opinions, they're just going to listen to you, which is the hardest thing for us human beings to do. You know what I mean, Brandon? Like, to truly step back and go, there is no problem for me to solve other than to suffer with this person in the moment. Yeah. And that's what people so desperately need. Yeah. That's what we need, is people that are willing to step into our world without any opinions or ideas or solutions and truly be in that moment, because nobody ever was. You see what I'm saying? Like, that idea in and of itself, like, that is the greatest gift you can give to another human being, in my opinion, is to truly enter into their world and be completely focused on honoring them and understanding them. Yeah.
How would you recommend to somebody who's going through a really hard time, they had a lot of pain in their past, which I believe everyone has a lot of pain in their past. Yep. How would you recommend to an everyday person, if they come to you and say, Paul, I'm looking for help, I'm going through this is my story, I don't know how to take it and learn from it and use it in order to improve my life and continue moving forward. Yep. How would you recommend to that person to find a community or a group of people like what you just talked about? Because that's very valuable.
I think it comes down to, like, so for me, I'm a person of faith, I don't believe any one faith is bigger than another, but I found community in Celebrate Recovery over at my church at Browncroft. Been going there for a long time, and I think that is a great place to look to start.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest problem with most people that claim to be Christians, in my estimation, are they're fake and they're not authentic and they're hypocritical, me included at times, to be honest, right? And so at that place, you will only find the real deal. You'll only find people in the leadership there that are truly there to serve. There is no agenda.
Yes.
You know? And what ends up happening is you get in a group of people, and people will just share what's going on in their life, right? And what you start to discover is, wait, there I am over here. Hold on, there's me over here. Wait, I'm in this person over here.
Yes.
You hear your story, and then you realize all of the things that I thought were negative about me, all the shame I carried my entire life. Hold on, this is part of the human condition.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
We just manifest our issues differently, you know?
Yes.
So that's where I found it. I think that allowing yourself to need help is so difficult for human beings, especially men. Like to say, I need help, I need to go find solutions.
Yeah.
Because we cannot change our thinking with our thinking. You simply cannot.
Yeah.
The way that you see the world, if there needs to be a shift in your life, is only going to come through other people. That's why, books and audiobooks and because like to transform your brain is not as much a psychological reality or a memory reality as it is a physical, biological reality.
Wow.
Because of those pathways, those neural pathways you build in your brain for stress reduction. At one point in my life, I was hugely addicted to sugar, right?
Okay.
And I still love sugar. Candy, sweets, I cannot get enough, you know? But now I've got to be careful with that, But my brain, I've developed that, hey, if I'm sad, eat a candy bar.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's so subtle how we do that in a plethora of different ways in relationship with ourselves and other people.
Yes. To go along with that whole eat a candy bar, I feel like we're not really taught how to properly get our dopamine, right?
Yes.
And when I say that, this is one of the first times I've talked about this on the channel.
Exactly.
We move either away from pain as human beings, or we move towards pleasure. We want to either feel good or we want to get away from pain. Most people want to move away from pain. And in order to move away from that pain, we resort to things that are short-term fixes. We resort to overeating, we resort to smoking, we resort to taking drugs. And this isn't everybody. There's also some routes where some people will go back to a negative relationship because it will fill that short-term need for that dopamine. And as we know, dopamine is what motivates us to do what it is we do. Now, once we're not getting the dopamine from those sources, we have to get them from somewhere else.
Exactly.
And that's when we can get it from our work and we can get it from our purpose. And I believe finding that purpose is, like for me personally, I have never been as fulfilled in my life as when I started this YouTube channel talking to you guys, when I started presenting at Cellular Sales, doing sales trainings and really helping people to set goals for their life and transform their life. And I think you know a little bit about my story where when I started with Cellular Sales, I was 18 years old. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I didn't really understand the concept of goals. So I made the money that I wanted to make, but after I did that, there was really nowhere else for me to go. I didn't know what else I wanted. We're not taught in our school system to set goals. We're not taught how to make money. We're not taught a lot of essential things that we need to know. And that's if you're fortunate enough to even have education and even have schools. And I remember I was making all this money, and eventually I'm 20. I'm 21. I'm 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I'm $20,000 in credit card debt. I've got negative relationships in my life, and the friends that I was hanging around, people I was associating with at work. And this is leading up to my next question for you. I found that what really changed my life was I experienced so much pain that I really had no choice but to change. I came home, I was confronted. My wife said, "Babe, how much money do you have in your credit card?" And I said, "I don't know, a couple $1,000s." And she said, "No, you're like over $10,000 on one credit card alone, so how much do you have on the rest?" And I had no choice but to change. And at that time, there was a time where I didn't want to leave my home because I didn't want people to see me because I was afraid to be seen. And now that's all I do is I train, I present, I put myself in front of a camera because I have something that I want to share. And sometimes we have to do things that make us uncomfortable in order to move forward.
Absolutely.
But what really changed my life is when I set intentional goals for my life.
Yep.
And once I started setting intentional goals to become debt-free, to weigh a certain amount, to weigh my perfect weight, to feel the way that I wanted to feel, everything in my life changed. Because I feel like once we set a goal, we start to focus on what it is that's really important to us. It's almost like a filter.
100%.
When you tell your brain what you want, your brain puts that filter so you see every opportunity, person, and thing that can bring you closer to your goal.
Yep.
So how have you applied goal setting in your own life? Because you must, because of all the things that you're doing. I mean, recently, what did you do recently when it comes to your health, Paul? We got to talk about that.
I lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
I lost 40 pounds in 9 weeks.
Unbelievable. Just over 2 months.
Yep.
You're 40 pounds lighter.
I think that Tony Robbins says it best, change happens in a moment.
Yeah.
It's a decision.
Yeah.
It's one decision. It's not 10 years of decision. You get to decide, who am I going to be and who do I want to become? And I was walking up the steps to my apartment, winded walking. I'm 218 pounds. And I said to myself, how am I going to be able to play with my kids that I want to have? How am I going to be here for a long period of time if I'm this overweight and I'm not taking care of myself, like with all the health ramifications of what happens when you're overweight and you don't take care of your body, and I just, in that moment, I had the strength to make the decision, because it had been a big goal of mine to get healthier and to take care of myself and respect this temple.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reasons why I never did was because my body was, never respected as a kid. It was you went through a lot of abuse, and so I never developed that healthy respect for my body and myself. It's always felt like I'm outside of my body until very recent. Well, within the last couple months, and now it's like I have a respect for my body. I think that's what I was missing.
Wow.
Is like an understanding that this thing is a gift and a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And if I don't allow it to be at peak condition, I'm only making my life much more complicated and more difficult.
Yeah.
And I think about my energy levels. I mean, it's through the roof. I mean, normally I get up at 3:45 in the morning. I just got so much stuff I'm trying to get done at the same time. I'm like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And I think that for me it became about, because we have a relationship with food.
Yeah.
We have a relationship with the things that we don't want to do. Everybody's got them in their life. If you happen to be human, there's things that you're like, why do I keep doing this stupid thing I don't want to do, right? We all have that thing. And I think with goal setting, what we don't realize is you are always setting goals.
Yeah.
You just may be setting goals to generate chaos in your life, not order.
Wow.
Most people don't see it that way. But in truth, if you are not plotting a direction, you're still going somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? My last job before I came over here, I was working in a factory. I worked there for a decade, right? Because it was a good job, quote unquote, the good job, thing that we tell ourselves. And it was the worst possible place for me to work. Like the place itself, the people were good, but a lot of toxicity and toxic people and backbiting and all that stuff. And I'm upbeat, and I was like the plague of the place. Like there's a lot of people that did not like me because I'm just like upbeat and focused, come and do my job, have a good attitude,
Yes.
And why did I do that? Why was it my goal to work at that place for a decade?
Yeah.
Right? Now, initially it wasn't, I'll be here for a couple of years. This is what we tell ourselves. I'll do this just for a little while until I get into the next thing. Initially, I thought, this is a good job, we'll just do it, I'll work there. And then what I realized was, my goal was to stay there because I had recreated my family system in that place.
Wow.
Which is such a huge misunderstanding in life. Like, people don't realize you're setting people up to be your parents in your life. Continually, all the time. Like, I think about the different relationships I had and how I would respond differently to different people at that job. And there's certain people that I set up to always be disappointed in me. Which is like crazy to say, but like I did that so that I could get the vitriol, so that because it felt familiar.
Yeah.
It felt like where I'd come from. And we're always in the process of recreating that through setting goals with chaos instead of order.
Yes.
And like I think it's so important to allow your subconscious mind to take a breath and truly understand that, like, there are centuries of wisdom inside of ourselves. You know, inside of this mind that's like generationally passed down through the reptilian brain, a part of the brain with the amygdala. And like, I think that we lose sight of the fact that, like, those goals that you think you aren't setting, you really are. You really are setting a goal to make your life something that you don't want it to be, possibly because you're afraid. Like, I was very afraid to actually be myself and actually function and go out and do the things that I'm meant to do in the world for many, many years of my life.
Yeah.
You know, I remember going to New York City and playing guitar in the streets and writing songs for people and then having panic attacks over by McDonald's.
Wow.
And then quitting, you know, because there was this delicate balance between me allowing myself to be seen and unseen. You know, I mastered that over the last 6 months. I've been really working hard on that feeling of safety, you know?
Talk to me more about that. When you say wanting to be seen but unseen, what do you mean by that?
So, growing up, like, being seen was negative because violence was going to happen. Being unseen was negative because violence was going to happen. So I had to remain in this gray area where I barely had any breath, and I was very, very calm all the time, and I was always analyzing situations, and I was much, much more reserved because you never knew when stuff was going to happen. You know, you never knew when things was going to get, you know, chaos was going to enter the room. Yeah. And I think being in that chronic state in my life made it, like, very difficult for me to have order. Like, I didn't start washing my dishes till I got married. Like, I'll be, you know what I mean? Like, which is like crazy to say. I just throw them away, and then eventually, after a couple of years, it just got plastic continuum. Yeah. Because, like, I did not want to have to wash my dishes. That's what I thought. But really, what I had set was the goal that I'm never going to wash dishes, because I made that decision when I was a kid. Because when I washed dishes, I got, you know, yelled at and screamed at and sometimes beat up. And so I'm going to avoid this thing, you know? Well, that's really a goal. I set that goal, right, for myself, that limitation, you know, instead of something that would enable me to get where I want to go. Yeah. Right? And so that's, I think, the misunderstanding is, like, people think your brain is making 5-second decisions all the time. Yeah. It's always got a goal and a place that it's going. Yeah. You just got to decide if you're going to have the courage to get in the driver's seat or not.
Wow. That's powerful right there. That's very powerful. So in the absence of goals, really, you're just kind of on autopilot, just drifting, accepting what's coming your way, accepting the chaos, not really having a clear path out. Yep. Okay, so I'm someone who wants more out of life. I have a traumatic past. Yep. I don't necessarily know how to move forward. I don't know how to discover what it is I'm meant here to do. Suffering, chaos in my life, but I want more. What would you recommend for somebody like me who wants to improve myself, but I don't know where to begin?
I would take the first step into accepting that you are enough. Wow. Which is so hard for people to do, and that you have what it takes. That you have something, you have a gift inside of your soul that you were put here to give to the world. And no one else on the planet can ever do that. Not me, not Brandon. No one else could ever do your mission, why you were put here. And allowing yourself to truly believe that I am enough as I am. I am acceptable as I am. Right? Allowing yourself to truly believe that I have what it takes to execute my future. That is what every single man is missing in his life. Yeah. Is that feeling of you have what it takes. You know? That's the one thing that if you're a dad, if you say that to your child 10,000 times, it may not be enough. Yeah. Because, like, we all, when the lights are off and the stages are empty and you're sitting there thinking about yourself and your life, we all have that thing that comes into the back of our mind. Like, am I really this person? Do I really have the ability to do this? Like, all that doubt creeps in. Yeah. And so combating that is something I do daily. I have to daily combat that with my, belief in myself. Like, that I do have what it takes. I have something to offer the world. Yeah. And I think that's the starting point. And then the next step is to If you can't surround yourself with people and you don't feel safe enough to go and be around a group of people that are working through the same challenges as you, you have a tremendous ability with knowledge and data that is out there in the world right now. We're really in the knowledge age. You know what I mean? There's so much knowledge out there. Find one guy on YouTube and devour all of their content.
Yeah.
You know, one of the ones who really helped me is Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
I mean, stunningly helped me understand life and made me such a better man.
Yeah.
Such a better person. Like, find one and then just dig into everything that they have to say and choose something different. Like, allow yourself to go, you know what? This feels all hokey dokey and weird. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Right? Feel those feelings, but at the same time recognize that which to familiar is you, that what you're familiar to is chaos.
Yes.
And so order is going to feel strange. Order is going to feel dangerous. Order is going to feel unsafe, bringing order into your life. I think about, my wife is all order. You know, I mean, she is so the opposite of me, which is, you know, they say opposites attract.
Yeah.
But I think about the order she's brought into my life and how I do things like pay bills on time. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like I get a parking ticket, we pay it. Instead of me having to wait like 3 months and then get a summons and now they're booting my car. Like, I was so addicted to chaos and that adrenaline that comes from it that every way in my life I'm trying to manufacture it. So as we're talking about this and I'm thinking about it, Brandon, like the bigger overarching theme here is self-worth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And developing that.
Yeah.
So I'm actually just really curious on what, because I know that you said you were a little bullied when you were a kid, and you, like I was, and you were overweight a little bit when you were a kid, like I was, and what I'm curious about is how did you develop that self-worth? How did you really work on who you were meant to be?
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said earlier. Find a community of people who will listen to you, who will hear your struggles, hear your pain, and just talk to those people and be around people who are higher in an elevated status from you, someone who's on the next level, a mentor, a group of people, whatever it may be. But I didn't have that. Okay, I found a few groups afterwards, which I'll talk about maybe in this video, maybe another one. One thing, though, that really changed the game for me was when a mentor gave me the book, and I've talked about this before, called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Yep. They gave me this book called The Secret, and they said, Brandon, if you really want to lose weight, if you really want to get yourself out of debt, you got to read this book. It completely changed my life. And I was like, all right, I'll read this book. So I checked it out. I opened it up. I read the book. And the first time I went through it, the general premise for those who haven't read The Secret is thoughts become things.
Yep.
What you think about, you attract more of those things into your life. If you think about lack, you attract lack. If you think about problems, you attract problems. Similar to what we were talking about with the filter when it comes to goal setting and achieving your goals. And I read it the first time and I was like, this stuff's kind of weird. It's kind of woo-woo. It's like, what does this even mean? How does this work? But I didn't really have a choice. You know, what I was doing wasn't working for me. I read a book the other night and it said 90% of our thoughts each day are the same exact thoughts every single day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is so true.
Yes. Think about right now. What are the main things that you think about on a daily basis? Are you thinking about, you know, what you're going to have for breakfast, what you're going to have for lunch, what you're going to have for dinner? Are you thinking about the problems? Are you looking forward at the problems, or are you looking forward at what could be? And imagine just taking 10% of those everyday thoughts that you're having and changing them, making them more constructive, making them more productive. So I read The Secret, and I started applying what it said to do, which is similar to what you mentioned, how we are creatures of emotion. The Secret says when you feel an emotion that's a low vibrational state, such as fear or desperation or lack or jealousy or envy, when you have an emotion like that, simply train yourself to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And let me tell you, when I started asking myself the question, what am I feeling right now? And took a mental inventory of my emotional state in that very moment, it changed my life.
Yep.
I would ask myself, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling right now? And it would be, I'm not feeling too good. And I remember back to when I watched Tony Robbins, like you mentioned. Tony Robbins says if you want to change how you feel, you can change one of two things. You can move your body, rapidly make a change in your physiology, and that can instantly change how you feel. And the second thing, as you know, is change your focus.
Yep.
Change what you're thinking about.
Yep.
So I would change what I thought about. Rather than think about, oh, I'm overweight, I'm heavy, I'm in debt, I would think about, what am I going to do next? I would think about, what can I do right now in order to take myself from where I am, because I don't really have a choice, to get to where it doesn't want to go. And let me tell you, that book, The Secret, led me to the next book by Rhonda Byrne, which changed my life even further. It's called The Magic. And I'll put links to these books in the description for you if you want to check them out too, right on Amazon.
I haven't read that one.
The Magic?
I have to get that one.
It's all about gratitude. And Paul was talking earlier about you have to tell yourself that you are enough. And some of you who are listening might be saying, yeah, that's easier said than done. I tell myself that, but I don't really believe it. And that's okay. Because the first time you start replacing that 90% of thoughts with a different 10% of thoughts, you're not going to believe it. You're going to have a case of imposter syndrome. It's not going to be real for you. What we have to do is practice the principle of auto-suggestion.
Absolutely.
The more we tell ourselves something, the more we begin to believe it. This is why a liar can say a lie so many times and they start to believe that lie. So I started visualizing the body that I wanted to have. I started visualizing a bank account with a green positive balance versus a red negative minus sign balance of all the debt that I was in. And every morning I would tell myself, this is who I am, this is who I am becoming, I am enough now, even though I didn't believe it at first, and this is where I'm headed. And within 6 months, I eliminated over $20,000 of credit card debt. Within 6 to 8 months, I lost 60 pounds. I felt good. I was playing basketball all the time with the team that I worked with. I was going to the gym with my mentor, and I got to where I wanted to get to. And after I achieved those goals, I said, what's next? Because that's an important question.
Yep.
Right? So right now, what's your goal for your fitness right now, Paul?
I wanna be at 165.
Okay.
Right now I'm at 183.4, I think, and I want to be the same weight I was when I graduated high school.
Okay.
And I don't know why that's my goal, but it just is. And then I want to sit between 165 and 175. And I really think that fitness has a lot more to do with becoming your best self than most people give it credit for. Like, I hate running. Here's a prime example.
Me too.
I despise it.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm training for a 5K right now because I hate running.
That's great.
Because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't like how I feel.
What's the logic in that?
Well, I think it's about the barriers that we put in front of ourselves, that we put such strong emotions on.
Yes.
Right? Those are the greatest things that will build our character.
Yeah.
And most people want to go around them.
Yes.
I wanna find some jujitsu neo matrix, right? That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to do the matrix, right? Instead of going right through the center of it. And for me, with my health, like, that was one big thing that I knew I had to do to get the results that I wanted.
Yeah.
But I refused to do for years. And it was about 9 weeks ago, I decided, you know what? I'm either going to be this person that's overweight, I don't like who I am in this one arena in my life, or I'm going to be who I'm meant to be. And I think about how much opportunity in my life I've missed out on, and relationships I've missed out on not building, because I wasn't physically fit.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing that no one ever really thinks about, is like, if you have more energy, right, during a day, you're going to build more relationships, right? If you get up earlier to work out, right, you're going to be more awake during your job. You're going to be more focused on what you're doing, because the longer you're awake, obviously, the more awake you become, right? And so, for me, fitness, like, I'd have my bouts with it, back and forth, but now I am on a very, very focused routine. I found the right diet for me, which is a big part of this. Slow carb diet. Check out Tim Ferriss. It's in the 4-Hour Body. If you haven't seen, for me, it works. Very strict 6 days, and then 7th day, eat whatever I want. And so for me, that works because I'm a binger. I'll eat like 65 Oreos. I'm not a guy that can have one Oreo.
Same way.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know. And so tell me more about those shifts for you. So you The Magic and The Secret were two big books that shifted for you in your life.
Yeah.
But you talked a little bit about how you would go and you'd work out with your mentor. And like, how did you get to a point where you got a mentor? Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how did you, in your life, build those relationships and find those people?
Pain is the one word answer, and I'll explain. I was ready to move up into leadership with Cellular Sales, the sales company that Paul and I both work for. And I approached my leader and I said, I'm ready to take the next step.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he said, no, you're not. And I said, what do you mean, no, I'm not? I said, I'm ready. And he's like, Brandon, you're not ready. He said, you're overweight. You got a ton of debt. The team doesn't respect you. He said, you're not ready. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not ready. He's like, you're just not ready for that next step. And I said, then what do I need to do? And he said, are you really serious? Are you committed to changing? And I said, yeah, I'm committed. And he's the one who gave me the secret. He's the one who gave me that book.
Wow.
And that's when I read it. And that's when, after I read that book, let me say something. And we hear all the time, like, coincidences. Like, you think about a friend and then that friend calls you. You think about buying a new car and you start seeing that car all around. When I read that book and I started to actually try to believe that your thoughts truly become things, everything changed. That mentor brought me to the gym with them 3 days a week and showed me how to work out. Before that, before I set a goal to work out, I wouldn't have found him. I wouldn't have had that opportunity to go to the gym and change my life. When I decided to remove the debt in my life, I found another mentor, Jordan Finken of mine, who you met today, who said, hey, you need to read this book, Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, which completely got me out of debt within 6 months, following the baby steps 1, 2, and 3. And really, what I live by, I'm obsessed with growth. I'm obsessed with being a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. And, I didn't have too much suffering in my past as much as so many other people have, but what I do have is that obsession. And I believe through that obsession, I can help other people focus on their own growth.
Absolutely.
So that they can help other people. I'm obsessed with helping people bring the best out of them, whatever you have inside of you that you're just special and you're unique and something that you were born with, but also what you learned. I love helping people to take that and use it to really make a difference in other people's lives. Because imagine this. Imagine 1,000 people watch this video, 100 of them decide to do something different starting today, to practice their purpose, practice their natural and learned and passion and all their abilities, and they make a difference. And then 100 of those people make a difference, and then 100 of those people make a difference. Think of the change and the difference we can see in the world, not even talking about politics and all of that, because we don't need that to make a difference. Imagine if you, which I know you are, you're on the path, imagine if you could simply make a 1% difference in the world, a 1% positive difference in the lives of 7 billion human beings. I believe that's possible because there are people doing it. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Tony Robbins, you can continue to name them. Oprah Winfrey. There's so many people making a drastic difference. And they all came from tragic pasts. And they took that origin story and they really used it to make a difference. You talk about suffering. Your podcast is named Suffer Well. And I have 2 more questions for you before I ask you how they can find you, because you need to check out Paul's podcast. You got to listen to it. I know everyone says, listen to my podcast. Paul's podcast is the cutting edge of personal development. It's the cutting edge of transformation. And I'm not just saying that. It's incredible. One question I have for you is, you named it Suffer Well. You talk about suffering. What do you believe is on the other side of suffering?
I see suffering as an unopened gift in most people's lives. An unopened present from life itself. Because suffering is truly what enables us as human beings to become and transition from our human state into the divine. And when you think about this, think about women like Mother Teresa, right? That's what I think about. Women like her that dedicated her life to service in that way. But it was in the midst of continual suffering that she was that shining light and that beacon. And in my own life, I see suffering as opportunity to do very unique things. So few people understand that literally the suffering that life has given you is your blessing that's just simply unmastered. And I can give you a prime example of that for me. For many years of my life, I had hatred, resentment, murderous rage towards my parents. I mean, it was not good. And I had this opportunity through working on myself where I met a girl And I just knew she was the right one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you know. That's what people say, right?
Yeah.
And I was so terrified. Like, the one fear that has been always driving in my mind my entire life is that I would recreate what would happen in my family system. I would recreate what happened in my parents' household in my own household. You know, that fear drove me for many years of my life to always be working, becoming 1% better every day, right? And I remember the day I asked my girlfriend at the time to marry me, and there was this exchange that happened that was so beautiful for me, like where I realized for the first time in my life, like somebody truly does love me for me.
Yeah.
You know, there was this spiritual thing I don't even understand that happened to me, where it's like I like exhaled in a way, right?
Wow.
And so we're planning the wedding, and we're about 2 months out, and she says to me, you know, I want to dance with my father at the wedding, but it'll be really awkward if you don't dance with your mother. You know, and she comes from a farmer background, and that's her way of saying, I won't dance with my father if you don't dance with your mother, because I don't want to explain to my 180 family members here why that happened, right? To which I replied, there's no way that's going to happen. I mean, you're on Pluto. Like, it's a miracle I'm even going to have them there in the first place.
Yeah.
Like which is a stunning miracle in my life, you know, because I remember telling my parents, you will not be at my wedding. I mean, getting fully candid, I remember when I was driving to take my parents' life from them. That's how much rage I'm talking about that I had, murderous rage. And I remember turning around the exit and saying to myself, they had the first chapter. They're not getting chapter 2 through 15.
Wow.
They're not getting the rest of the chapters of my life, because I am not going to allow what happened to me to control my destiny.
Yeah.
I'm the master of the suffering, right? And so, about a month later, I just hear this thing inside my head. 20 years from now, you want your children to see you as a little boy or as a man? And I literally saw a vision. I was driving in a car, and I saw this vision of my current wife sitting on a couch, and the kids around her, and she's crying as she's going through the photo album from the wedding. And the kids are saying, Mom, why are you crying? And she's saying, I don't know why I'm crying. And I was like over on the other side of the room, and I knew, because I'd stolen something from her that was precious. Like, since she was a little girl, her dream was to dance with her father on her wedding day. And I would have taken that.
Yeah.
You know? And in that moment, I realized that I have an opportunity to return divine good for the divine evil that was done to me.
Yeah.
And so on my wedding day, I took my mother out there by her hand, and I danced with her, and I cherished her, and I honored her for probably the first time in her life. And I remember her just standing there crying and saying, Paul, you know, I've always loved you. And I said, I know, Mom, you just didn't have the tools. You just didn't have the tools to deal with what life had given you, because my grandfather was crazy, you know, 6-pack in the morning, at noon, at night, got out of the military, PTSD. I mean, she had a crazy life that she was given to her. And that's why I'm so passionate about talking about this stuff and being so candid and sharing vulnerably, which I don't want to do. I don't want to put my life on display. I don't want to do that. But I know that there's people on the other end of this camera that so desperately need to hear somebody that's survived, that's done it, that's become themselves, you know? Yeah. And that's what drives me, you know, is that idea that maybe I can reach that one person that was like me, that was dejected, and help them save some time.
Yeah.
So that instead of them spending decades of their life lost, right, they could spend maybe a couple years lost. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what drives me with all this work that I do. And like, that's why I think we were all meant to exist.
Yeah.
There's something that we have to give to the world, and it's on the other side of suffering. Like, let me tell you, I had to lay down my ego, who I saw myself as a man, my rage, my anger. I had to lay all of that down to honor my mother on that day. And it changed me fundamentally as a man, as a person. It completely changed me, because forgiveness is not something that's human, it's divine. It's something well beyond our understanding or capability, in my opinion. Forgiveness is a divine experience where what people deserve to get you are the person inside of your heart and soul that you say, no, we're going to cover that up. It's going to be okay. Right? And that's something that's well beyond my understanding as a human being, like how I actually did that. But the peace that it gave me in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember the moment, and I remember feeling inside of myself, I had completed the mission I set out to about a decade before, of mastering the suffering that I'd gone through, so that I didn't give it to my kids, so that it didn't continue in my lineage. It's going to end with me. And that's why I think suffering is so important, because generationally, you have issues in a generation, then you have issues, then you have issues. They follow us in our lineage, these issues, right? My great-grandfather, Donald, was in World War I. He was all crazy, like came back with PTSD, shell shock, they called it back then, right? Mm-hmm. Then same thing happened to my grandfather. And then, you know, my mother, went through all her trauma and abuse as a kid. And then what do people do? They recreate what was done to them. And it's a generational thing that has to get worked through. And so for me, that's why, like, if eventually you have to suffer and grieve the issues in your lineage. Because if you don't, you pass it on. Subconsciously. That just is reality. You know? There's up to 200 traits that are passed on from a man to a child. Right? Up to 200 traits that are passed on through sperm. I saw that with Dr. Rhonda Patrick talking to Joe Rogan about that. Like, blows my mind. That we are passing on to the next generation of ourselves that which we do not deal with ourselves.
Similar to epigenetics.
Exactly.
Yep. What you said, everything you just said was profound. What you just said when you said, when I turned around on the highway, because they were chapter 1 in my life, and I realized that they weren't going to have any more chapters after that. And there isn't even another question I want to ask you, because I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation. And one thing I want to say to end this is, whatever chapter you're in right now, just realize you're not at the end of your book. You've got plenty of chapters to go. Use chapter 1 and take what you've learned and use it to build a greater foundation and a better life for yourself, using that first chapter. And remember, you are writing the book of your life right now, and you're writing that through the suffering that you endured, and the suffering that we will continue to endure, but it leads us to who we're truly meant to become, at least I believe. Paul, I'm grateful to know you at this point.
It's been an honor
in my life, in your life. I can't wait to see how many people you go on to impact, brother. You're already impacting so many. So for my audience, for your audience, where can we find more Paul Rankin?
You just type in Suffer Well Podcast into Google. It'll come up. I got my websites that are being built. So sufferwellpodcast.com should be active within the next couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, those are the two places you can find it. If you type it right in, it'll come up. It comes up on Spotify. It's on, I'm on all the platforms that you can be on.
That's amazing.
And it was an honor being here today, Brandon. Like, I love the conversation. I feel like I grew so much just in the moment and being asked questions, and like, because I grow through talking, through externalizing. That's how my brain works. Yeah, it was an honor to talk with you and to push the boundaries of my mind. I really enjoyed it.
The honor was mine. Suffer Well Podcast. Go check out Paul Rankin. And thank you so much for watching. Continue to be better.